All set. I just realized is yes, he's here. Okay, good. Like my singer, where is he? But I just saw him. Welcome to the Rotary Club of York. We are a people of action committed to service above self and honoring the four-way test. If you haven't already done so, please silence your cell phone. President-elect Glenn Miller will lead us in our opening song, God Bless America, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Eric Chase will offer the invocation, and Jerry Watson will introduce our visitors.
Didn't mean to scare you there, Jackie. Good afternoon, everybody. Please join me in God Bless America. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you would prepare yourself in the way you're most accustomed for prayer. Creator, you tell us, my children, eat honey, for it is good. Yes, the honey from the comb is sweet to your taste. Know that the wisdom is this for your soul. If you find it, then there will be a future, and your hope will not be cut off. We thank you for the sweetness you've given each of us in our lives and the sweet fellowship we share with each other here today as we gather as Rotarians. Bless our time together, our speaker, who will share the sweet story of the Hershey Company and its sweet future in our area. Bless this food and the hands that have prepared it and serve it. May we use it, the honeycomb, sweet to our taste, to nourish our bodies and souls so that we may know your wisdom. We pray for peace throughout our world, especially in Ukraine, but also for the violence and conflict in our own communities. Help us to live as your children, to be channels for your peace and reconciliation, so that we may know there's a future and hope will not be cut off. Amen.
I'm pleased to have the honor of introducing our guests for today's meeting. When I call your name, please stand and remain standing until President Jackie has welcomed you. Our first guest is Jonathan Barton, guest of Aaron Jacobs, Sarah Berman, guest of Doug Berman, Justin Erdman, guest of Andy Harold, Aaron Farrow, guest of Tom McCracken, Kylie Farrow, guest of Tom McCracken, Jill McCracken, guest of Tom McCracken, Cora Taylor, guest of Andy Rawwitz, Elizabeth Miller, guest of Ann Druck, and Debbie Butcher, guest of Brian Tate.
Welcome, everyone. It's so great to have you with us today. We hope that you find this program very informative and delicious and that you'll plan to join us again often. Please help me welcome our guests. The Global Grants Committee will meet on March 25th at 3 p.m. via Zoom. The Little League Committee will meet on March 30th at 5 p.m. at Allen Field to clean up the field in preparation for opening day. Any interested volunteers are invited to come rake leaves, pick up litter, and clean the batting cages, and be sure to bring your rake and your gloves. We have two upcoming fellowship events, a family night and open house at Tidings of Peace Christian School on Saturday, April 2nd from 3 to 9, and a networking luncheon at Hollywood Casino at Galleria Mall Friday, April 8th from 12 to 1. If you're interested, please RSVP to past President Rob Bowen. Thank you, everyone who brought guests today and have been bringing guests through the month of March as we march to 300, our March Madness push to get to 300 members, and we're very close. Please continue to invite guests to join you, even into April and May and June and July and so on, and encourage them to consider membership. I wanted to let you know that Charlie Snyder is home recovering from an illness, and he welcomes your well wishes and your phone calls. Jan Wagamu's family is continuing to ask for prayers for Jan, who is now out of intensive care in the hospital, but he is still in the hospital. A special congratulations to Bernice Quisenberry and her husband Stephen on the birth of their baby girl, Faye Marie, last Friday, and mom and baby are doing very well. I want to thank you all so much for your generosity in making contributions to the Ukraine relief effort. We're very, very well on our way to bringing in $15,000 to send for relief efforts in Ukraine and to help a lot of our sister clubs who are there. Our club is well on our way to 5,000 and we can keep on going. We have an anonymous donor, as I've mentioned, who gave a gift of 5,000. And of course, our CEF has pledged 5,000 match as well. So if you'd like to make a contribution, you can do that online, or you can also send a gift to the Rotary office, a check made payable to CEF. Well, I want to talk a little bit about Ben Ott. Hello, Ben Ott. Can we see all of him? We just see part of him. Ben Ott has been our behind the scenes tech expert for the last year and a half, at first helping us navigate the challenges of meeting virtually to our current hybrid format. He dedicated several hours every week in preparing for and overseeing the tech side of our meetings, and then drove to Baltimore to his job in photojournalism with WBFF Fox 45. When you're as talented as Ben, you'll naturally be promoted. And that's just what happened, as Ben has accepted a new role as chief photojournalist, overseeing a team of editors and photographers. He's also made the move from Red Lion to his new home in Baltimore's Little Italy. Ben is not easy to replace. It looks like it'll take at least 3 people to fill his shoes. Today, Daniel Lorenzo is running tech, and in the coming weeks, you'll meet Lindsay Barna and Melanie Crisamore, both from Fox 43. Ben shared with me that the experience he's had in Rotary has been rewarding, and although he has lived in York most of his life, Rotary brought to the forefront many great examples of excellence in our community, contributing to our growth. He says, in addition to the good food here at the club, he'll miss everyone he's met. Thank you, Ben, for the outstanding job you did for our club, and all the best to you in your new role at the station. We look forward to hearing about these Emmy Awards we know you'll be receiving. We hope that you'll come back and visit us as often as you can, and we'll be sure to have a hot meal waiting for you. Congratulations. And now our member moment. Hello, Ray. Ray Rosen became a member of our club over 33 years ago. He served for many years on the Youth Exchange Committee and is currently on the Budget and Finance Committee. He was familiar with Rotary as his wife Deborah's father was active in their club, and she and her sisters were outbound students studying in Sweden and Japan. Ray was born in Louisville, Kentucky, but grew up in Scranton, where his father worked in the pretzel manufacturing business. Ray and his wife were elementary school sweethearts. They lived just 4 blocks apart, and their parents were friends. Ray was attending Penn State when Deborah was away in the youth exchange program. He recalls trying to persuade the bank to give him $75 in quarters so he could call her long distance in Sweden. The bank was reluctant to do this, convinced he had a gambling problem. He had to make a strong case for his long distance romance before the bank finally acquiesced. They were married after Ray graduated, and he went on to earn his master's degree in hospital administration at George Washington University, while Deborah finished her degree at Penn State in absentia. They've been married for 50 years and have 2 daughters and 4 grandchildren. Ray moved to York when he was accepted as a 1-year administrative resident student at York Hospital, which led to full-time employment. He oversaw several departments before reaching the position of Chief Operating Officer, where he worked until his retirement in 2015. He says that retirement is better than advertised. Had he known how great it was, he would have retired earlier. Ray is a first-generation American. His parents were Holocaust survivors from Czechoslovakia. His father had 13 brothers and sisters, all of whom died in concentration camps, along with his grandparents, aunts, uncles on both sides of the family. They lost 239 relatives. His parents arrived at Ellis Island with nothing more than the clothes on their back. Ray says that Rotary stands as one very large international organization with a significant role to play in making positive and lasting change here and around the world. Thank you, Ray, for being a part of that change and for all these years of Rotary service. And now J.L. Smith has a youth exchange announcement.
I don't know if it's really coincidental that I'm following the member moment with Ray and his youth exchange experience, and the fact that our only student this year that is being sponsored by our club is Jaleese Stidell, who will be going to Czech Republic in the fall. Jaleese actually was supposed to have gone on exchange in 2020, but we all know what happened then. So she's back now, and unfortunately, she won't be able to do the traditional attendance at the meetings and do the meet and greet and the presentation, introductory presentation, because she's in Denmark right now with her mother, who is on sabbatical from Penn State York. However, Jaleese will be back in the summer of 2023, at which time she will do a presentation to the club comparing her high school experience from York Suburban and then Denmark and then the Czech Republic, something that I don't think any other student exchange has had an experience like that. So you'll hear more from the Youth Exchange Committee in the next few weeks. Until then, stay tuned. Thanks.
Thank you, JL, for that announcement. And now Kelly Gibson with a York Rotary Grants presentation.
Thank you, Jackie. On behalf of the Grants Committee, I'm excited to announce that we now have our letter of interest open for the York Rotary Grants. We have dropped the charitable part because it's just easier to say York Rotary Grants. We have $40,000 to award for organizations in York for grants from $2,500 to $15,000. And we now are basing, from the work of our committee, there are 7 international fields of interest for Rotary International. Our committee chooses 2 every year, so that we can be responsive to the York community's needs. And this year we have chosen economic development, growing local economies, and peace, promoting peace and social justice. So organizations can submit an online simple letter of interest at yorkrotary.org from now until our deadline of April 8th at 5 p.m. So please send it out to your networks, encourage organizations doing good work in the community to apply, and we're thrilled to make this change to be more responsive to the needs of our community. Thank you.
And now I invite the chair of our Rotary Foundation Committee to come forward with some Paul Harris Fellow presentations.
Thank you very much, President Jackie, and good afternoon, fellow OTRs, Rs, and guests. It's great to see you all. I've got some great news to report today. And the great news to report is as a result of your generosity to the Rotary Foundation. The great news is that we have achieved so many different levels of Paul Harris giving recognition that we have to spread the recognition over multiple meetings so we don't monopolize the agenda. That's pretty exciting news. So today we're going to do 6. On the 19th, on the 6th of April, we're going to do 19, and then we have more to come after that. So it's pretty exciting. And again, our club shows great leadership within our district on giving to the foundation. So we're going to start today by recognizing the family of my predecessor and our former Rotary Foundation Committee Chair, Tom McCracken. Tom has done a great job of using his recognition points to give virtually everybody in his family a Paul Harris Fellow Award, and that he will have completed that process, I think, today. So first of all will be his daughter, Erin Farrow, will receive a Paul Harris Award from Tom. If you would come forward. And Tom is actually bringing up Kylie Farrow, his granddaughter, who will be the youngest recipient of a Paul Harris Fellow Award in the history of our club. She's actually accepting it on the behalf of Tom's son, Kevin McCracken. So Tom, good use of your recognition points. Now we'll move to past President Gordon Frerick, who gets his 4th level of Paul Harris Fellow today. And as he comes forward, we're going to recognize several others. Jules Tolbert, his Paul Harris Fellow +3. Michael Anstein, his Paul Harris Fellow +2. And JT Hand, his Paul Harris Fellow +1. And we have a first-time Paul Harris Fellow recipient today, Phil Woods. Is Phil here? I didn't see him. Phil. Oh, he's not here. Okay, well, we'll put him in the next group. So these are outstanding true Rotarians who make a great contribution to our club through their committee work, through their contributions to the foundation, and their commitment to our cause. So let's give these OTRs a nice round of applause.
Thank you, Bill Hartman. You're doing an excellent job as chair of the Rotary Foundation Committee. Thank you for all you do. And thank you to all of you. What a generous club you are. And it's just another testament of the great work that we're doing and will continue to do. Thank you all so much. And now it's my pleasure to introduce past President Mike Summers to introduce our program.
I want people to notice that President Jackie and I are now color coordinating. Can't promise it's going to be every week, but this week's special. Last week, President Jackie and I traveled to the beautiful town of Hershey, PA for a little R&R as Jackie had a successful gala for PEMAR, raised a lot of money for that great organization, but she was exhausted. And as everybody knows, Hershey is the sweetest place on earth. And so we enjoyed going up there, enjoyed seeing the Hershey Theater, going to the Hotel Hershey, the Butterfly Museum and Gardens, the Hershey Store Museum, and President Jackie topped all that off with a delicious chocolate martini. Literally, Hershey is the town that Milton Hershey and his wife Kitty built and has founded one of the great international corporations in the world in 1894. That is now the Hershey Company. The company is valued at well over $42 billion with approximately $9 billion in annual income. One of the leaders tasked with continuing to build on that incredible legacy is our speaker, Steve Voskuil, the Senior Vice President, the Chief Financial Officer of the Hershey Company. Steve leads the company's global finance organization, including financial planning and analysis, accounting and reporting, tax, treasury, internal audit, investor relations. Steve is busy. Today, Steve will share more on the long-standing purpose and values of the company and how it's investing in long-term growth for the future. Further, Steve will give us behind-the-scene views of leading through the worldwide pandemic and key priorities for the company as it looks towards its future. Prior to joining Hershey in May of 2019, Steve led financial teams at Avanos Medical, Halyard, and Kimberly-Clark. He has a bachelor's degree from the University of Wisconsin, go Badgers, and an MS in management from Stanford Graduate School of Business. I don't know what their mascot is. Steve is a father of 3 adventurous young men and enjoys traveling with his wife. Rotarians and guests, please warmly welcome the CFO of Hershey, Steve Voskuil.
All right, good afternoon. Well, I hope you saved room for a sweet treat on your way out. The cake in back looks awesome, but we've got something better over here on the way out. So it's great to be here. Thank you for the invitation. On behalf of all of the Hershey leadership team, it's awesome to get to talk to you a little bit. We'll talk about where we're focused right now. We'll also talk about some of the challenges, and I'm sure a lot of them are the same challenges you're facing in your business. It's a very volatile environment that we're all operating through right now. I am relatively new to Central PA, although I say we've really enjoyed it. I grew up in the Midwest in Wisconsin. My family, extended family, still lives there. We'll skip past that. Oh, there we go. And a Badger. And my wife and I can't rival Ray, but we were high school sweethearts. And so got married when we were in college, had an adventurous family, and most of my formative years in the business world were with Kimberly-Clark. And Kimberly-Clark had moved us all over the US. We spent 6.5 years living outside of London before eventually Kimberly-Clark spun a company out to the public markets, which is called Halyard. And if you're a finance nerd like I am, the opportunity to take a company public comes along like once in a lifetime. And so that was the opportunity for us to part with Kimberly-Clark and start a new adventure that ultimately brought us here to Hershey. But as we settle into Central PA, one thing we've enjoyed, it looks a lot like the Wisconsin. We grew up in dairy farms, green rolling hills, and a very family-focused, community-focused environment, which we enjoy. As we look to the future, the question often gets asked, well, what do you do? What is the CFO's job at Hershey? My wife asks me this question sometimes, so I got to practice my answer. But really, it boils down to just a couple of things. The first is Michelle, our CEO, and I, Michelle Buck, have the joint accountability really on the first thing, which is to drive sustainable, profitable growth. And I'd say each word in that is important. We want to grow the company. We want to grow the volume of the company, not just through price. We want more consumers to eat our products every day. We want it to be profitable. And right away there is one of the big tensions probably in the CFO's job, right? We want to grow, but we also want to increase our profitability over time, continue to pay the dividend that's very important to the trust and to our public shareholders. And then we want it to be sustainable. We're not running the company for a quarter. or for a year. We want to run it for generations and be good stewards of the business we inherited, just as those before us were. And so, and of course, today, sustainable has other meanings, and we want to be sustainable for the environment. We want to be sustainable for our communities. We want to be sustainable for the families of all of our employees. In addition, a big part of my job is allocating capital. And really the thought here is the shareholders' investment in us is precious, and we want to treat it like that. My job is not to warehouse the shareholders' cash. We will not grow without taking risk, but we want to make sure that we are very wise in the way we deploy and the way we take risk. So our job is risk taking, not risk avoidance, but doing it in a smart way. And ultimately, if we don't have enough great returning projects inside of Hershey, then my job is to give it back to the shareholders and let them pick other investments to be able to deploy that capital against. And then I've got an accountability, like we all do, to develop future leaders, to start seeding that next generation of senior leaders at the Hershey Company. And if I do all of those things right, my team and I then will be able to create sustainable shareholder value for our company. So that's a little bit about the role. We have inherited a beautiful business going back to Milton Hershey, and a pretty simple one at its heart, focused around core brands. And the importance is, to quote a famous Milton Hershey saying, you know, the best advertising we can do is quality, producing good quality, consistent products that are accessible to people at all income levels and ultimately all around the world. That's what we've inherited. I think we've also had a lot of focus, and this has become even more clear in COVID, the importance of special moments and the moments or the role that our brands play in special moments for people. And if you've cruised YouTube over the COVID pandemic and the lockdowns, you'll see lots of very cute videos of people still finding ways to celebrate, whether it's Easter, Halloween, the 4th of July, s'more season, the holidays, in ever more creative way. And we believe our brands play a really special role, an emotional role in some cases in advertising and between the lines, increase awareness, increase sales, and that's the positive flywheel that really drives a big part of our business. And so internally, we are talking all the time about gross profit. We're talking about cost savings. We're talking about ways to manage revenue to protect and grow that gross profit line, because that unlocks the flywheel for us. We have a lot of strengths beyond the beloved brands. We have strong teams. We have great capabilities in marketing. I would say we're one of the premier marketing companies in the world with these brands. And also have just fantastic talent that really stepped up as we walked through COVID, whether you're in the manufacturing environment or working at the office. I see here we're doing hybrid work environments, just like we're doing at Hershey. We were talking, a few of us at lunch, whether we're ever going to go back to all full time. And I got to say, it's been a game changer. Every conference room we have at the office has a mix of video cameras and live. And I constantly find myself trying to figure out which camera I need to be talking to. And our younger generation of workers expect even more flexibility probably than my generation. We're still have a pretty flexible work schedule at Hershey, at least for the office-based employees. And we're kind of having Tuesday to Thursday. We would love to see you in the office, but ultimately we want you to do your best work. And if your best work gets done at home, then great, do it at home. If your best work gets done at the office, some days, then come to the office. But ultimately, we want to make sure that our work environment matches pace with the expectations of today's employees. As we look to the future, one of the notes here, I guess we'll see if we can, we'll just let that sit. Okay, well, one of the big challenges we have right now, and I'm sure many of you face this too, is just dealing with growth. And so that's one of my regrets from last year, is that as good of a year in 2021 as the Hershey company had, we could have sold more if we would have made more. And we brought online 4 new manufacturing assets over the course of last year. We have another 4 or 5 assets coming online this year, particularly in the area of Reese's and Hershey's and Payday. So if those are your favorites, help is coming. We're going to be making more. But we also started up in Anvil a new Agile Fulfillment Center. So one of the highest tech distribution centers that we have in our network went live just earlier this year. And in addition, we continue to look for ways to add capacity and fortify our supply chain.
Okay.
We also are one of the industry's largest investors in advertising and promotion expense. And so at the same time that we've invested there, we continue to invest behind the consumer and make sure that we're getting on TV and that we're being in all the places people today look for ads and information about our great brands. And then finally, as you saw, or you will see eventually, we also have invested in some mergers and acquisitions. You know, we love our heritage brands, but at the same time, the world and tastes evolve. And so over the course of 21, we did 3 separate acquisitions. One called Dodge Pretzels, I mentioned, another called Lily's Chocolate. So if you have a taste for chocolate but want a better for you chocolate offering, look for Lily's on shelf. That really helps us build out that healthier space inside of confection. And we also bought a pretzel manufacturing company to help supply some of those Dodge Pretzels. As I kind of pivot, I think we're going to try to do a video. We'll see if it works. If not, I'm just going to keep going. Here we go. We'll keep rolling. If we get the video, that'll be the bonus. So we'll talk a little bit about leading through volatility and some of the challenges that we have, because I'm really curious to hear from you some of the challenges you're facing as well. You know, the biggest one probably right now that I think we're all facing is just inflation. We see it in a couple of ways. We see it one on the cost side, which probably everybody sees. We buy a lot of, as you imagine, agricultural commodities. We have a hedging program in place that smooths out some of the impact of those commodities, but it doesn't eliminate it. And so when we look at agriculture prices, we look at freight, distribution, warehousing, and of course labor. That's putting pressure on that very important gross margin. So we look at other avenues like pricing to help offset. The other area where we see inflation though is on your basket. So when you shop and it just costs more to go fill up your tank. You know, are you as likely to go into the convenience store, buy a candy bar if you're really trying to control how many miles you put on your car to reduce your gas spend? I had two examples even this weekend. My wife and I, on sunny weekends, will take a motorcycle ride through the mountains around Hershey. And I stopped to fill up the motorcycle at one spot, and it cost $21 to fill the motorcycle tank. I don't think in my 53 years, I've put $21 of gas in a motorcycle ever. And then was at a restaurant watching some of the March Madness over the weekend, and us and some friends ordered some wings. And on the menu, the wings were listed at market price. I was like, we're not ordering lobster. This is just wings. But it's just, you know, all of us are seeing that impact. Our consumers are seeing that impact, and how they react to with their pocketbook in their basket as their groceries are getting more expensive, their fuel is getting more expensive, is something that we're watching very closely. We're also seeing, and I'm sure you're seeing this as well, the impact of fractured global supply chains. You know, it used to be when I'll say nations can operate in an environment of trust, and we have low trade barriers. Trade is very efficient, and we can take wheat from the Ukraine or Russia, and we can make corn and soybeans, and it brings down the price. As not just due to the war, but just looking through COVID and now enhanced by the war in Eastern Europe, these supply chains are breaking down, and that has a cascading impact through our business as well. Places that we would normally have easy trade, whether it's with China or Eastern Europe, that's additional impediment and costs that we've got to work through. In addition, it changes the way we think about what assets we want to own and which we want to rent. So we have many partners around the world that manufacture products for us, do distribution for us, warehouse products for us. And there was a good part of my career where it was smart to be asset light and have less things on your balance sheet and take advantage of strong expertise in partners to do that work. And I think what we found in recent years is the same labor challenges that I might have, my partners are going to have. And so I'm not avoiding or pushing off any of these fractures in the supply chain. I'm just extending it to a third party that now I've got to help to manage their supply chain and some of their challenges as well. So it's causing a rethink about what problems I want to bring closer to me so I can fix them versus rely on some critical third parties to help fix. And then the third challenge, I think, is just health and wellness in general. I'm sure your companies as well have seen, people are focused on mental health now as much as physical health, right? We got through the COVID from a physical standpoint, but we still have people suffering from isolation. And this is one of the ironies of COVID, right? People say, hey, it's great for introverts, you get to work from home. But then the feedback is people actually do feel more isolated and miss the face-to-face contact like you all have today. And so as we think through our population, trying to find a balance where we can help our employees from a mental health standpoint as well. As we think about those areas of volatility, a couple of things we're also going to be focusing on. One is continuing to invest in our employees. And this is another learning generation to generation. When I started with Kimberly-Clark right out of college, my first job was as a cost analyst in a manufacturing plant that made diapers. And a big part of my job was to sort of hunt and root out overtime. And as you can imagine, there were sometimes not a great reception to that. People had built a whole lifestyle around that overtime. And as I kind of rooted it out, I'd get a lot of pushback. Today, our younger generation of employees doesn't want as much overtime. They want more flexibility. They have other job options that provide a different flexibility, and they're willing to accept a different lifestyle choice to accommodate that flexibility. And across our manufacturing and office locations, we're finding ourselves in that tension. And we have $50 million of investment this year in the manufacturing area alone to look at things like crew structures and shift structure changes to allow more flexibility while still not giving up on the productivity and yields that we need to be able to drive a efficient cost base. So that's the second area of a lot of investment for us. And the third is on the environment and sustainability. That is, again, in my lifetime, something that has just become huge for companies. I'm sure it is for yours as well. I don't have an investor meeting today where we don't spend at least 10 minutes of the hour or even longer just talking about our sustainability goals and what we're doing for the environment and for our employees. We now go to investor conferences that are solely focused on those topics. It's very important to our investors. It's important to the analysts that follow our stock. And of course, it's also core to Milton Hershey's legacy. And so we have more effort and investment than ever before on making sure we have sustainable manufacturing, that we have strong community connection, that we provide a good place for our employees and their families, and are thinking not just about it in today's dollars, but thinking about the future. How do we deliver all of that growth in an ever more environmentally friendly context? And so that is a third huge area of focus for us. The fourth is continuing to go where consumers go. The younger generation doesn't shop like I shop. And today we spend about 8% of our sales on advertising, and about 75% of that is digitally. And so it's going to people's phones and iPads, and getting very targeted and specific to put messages inside your shopping basket when you're getting groceries picked up at Giant, for example. We found the power of going where the consumer goes during COVID, because we had the ability to look around the country by zip code and figure out where we might have an opportunity on s'mores. And so we did special s'mores promotions that we pushed out to places where we thought, hey, there's an opportunity in this market to do more from s'mores. Again, it was something in the backyard. It's for the family. It's COVID friendly. And we have sold more s'mores product than in the last 2 years than we ever did before, because that ability to kind of understand where the consumer is going, understand where we could play a different role, and follow where people were having their family rituals in a better way. All of those things together then get us to a point where we think we have confidence that we can deliver a continued growth path going forward. Our long-term guidance is 2 to 4% growth on the top line, 6 to 8% growth on the bottom line. For 22, our goals are actually higher than that. They're double-digit top line and double-digit bottom line. And so we've got a big mountain to climb, especially in light of some of the inflation that I talked about earlier. But it's a great business built off the legacy of Milton Hershey. And as I said, we really feel the pressure as a leadership team to be good stewards of what has been given to us for this time to manage and run. So with that, I'm going to pause and see if the video works. You can still put it there. Okay, the video is not going to work, but I would love any questions anybody has about anything. If I don't know the answer, I'll tell you, but I welcome any questions. Yes.
You mentioned Dot's pretzels. I wondered how they got here. I think they're from the north.
They are.
Okay. My first question is, how does that connect to her? Thank you. All right, so have to order them. They are a very good product. How did that connection occur, and are you manufacturing this here?
Yeah, great question. So Dot's Pretzels. Dot's is based out of Fargo, North Dakota. That was where it was founded. Their founder is a lady who literally made them in her kitchen. She invented that product and that recipe in her kitchen. She expanded from there. And it's a great story. It's actually a great Midwestern, small town, small family story that led to big success. Today, Dot's distributes mostly in the middle part of the country. So if you, like my family in Wisconsin, they know Dot's inside and out. They thought we bought the Hope Diamond when I told them we got Dot's. But if you're on the West Coast and some parts of the East Coast, we've had plenty of stock analysts say, what is Dot's? I don't know what that is. And so it's a great business. Today, we don't manufacture any here. They actually had, believe it or not, between them and their manufacturer, 7 facilities, small ones, some so small they would fit at the end of a shopping center, small, where they manufactured it. So one of our jobs over time will be to try to optimize that manufacturing because it is just selling so strong. If you haven't had a chance to try it, definitely do. One thing that was unique about Dot's Pretzels, the deal, is it goes back to the asset light. What do you want to own and what do you want to rent? Dot's outsourced all of their pretzel manufacturing. And so we loved the brand, we loved the product, but felt very uncomfortable in today's environment, just having a brand, but not a supply chain. And so for that one, we actually bought the co-manufacturer as well. And so it's a very company called Pretzels Inc. They're awesome at manufacturing pretzels. They do Dots and a bunch of other pretzels. And so if you imagine a future where we might have a Dots pretzel filled with Reese's peanut butter, for example, or a dipped pretzel, these are all the kind of things that that pretzel space allows us to do. Very good question. Yes.
How do you see
factory automation at Hershey influencing how you've been able to drive sales and financial decisions at Hershey in the last few years?
Yeah, automation in manufacturing is a huge topic, and it is for Hershey as well. When I mentioned earlier, the Anvil Fulfillment Center, that's one of our biggest steps forward in technology. One of the challenges for us is when we do holiday and seasonal product, so think about assortments. You know, we provide assortments that include Hershey products, but often also competitors' products, because that's what the consumer wants. They might want to, Three Musketeers in their bag of Hershey candy, and sometimes we'll help put that together. And the idea of mixing and creating those mixed bags, and then also with a mind on profitability and how to create a profitable mix and so on. There's a lot of calculus inside that. And so the fulfillment center in part is taking robotic automation and computers to help us very finely tune assortments and make sure that we can make them efficiently. We can make them in some cases to a price or a cost point. If you go out to the manufacturing floor, there's also more automation. I think particularly as general labor costs get higher, the returns on automation type projects look more attractive. We still have, if you were to see a manufacturing facility at the chocolate plant today, you'd be surprised by how much automation there is, particularly on the packaging ends of the line, where in the past, there was always a lot of heavy labor in some cases. Moving cases, we try to automate as much of that as possible. But it's really, the next tier will be more automation in the chocolate manufacturing itself, but a lot of activity in that space. Good. Oh, yes, in the back, I see one. Yeah, so that was the question was around child labor, particularly in East and West Africa. We buy a lot of our cocoa beans, as many do in this supply chain, from West Africa, some from South America, Costa Rica, and other places. So inside of our environmental, social, and governance platform, I'll say agriculture and sustainable agriculture is probably the biggest platform. Inside of that platform, the two biggest areas are cocoa sustainability and water, because we also use a fair bit of water and fresh water. Inside of the cocoa component of that, Hershey is very active, both directly active and also as part of the industry in funding farming communities, funding new ways to help local farmers in Africa be more efficient, and to also support what's called the living income differential, which is additional income that goes to farmers through the way the government structures the trade in the West African countries. And so this area of cocoa sustainability is going to be critical for our future. It's going to be critical for everybody who's in the chocolate space's future. That is probably the single biggest area of conversation that we have when we talk with investors on this topic. And Hershey is, because it's so central to our product, also wants to be central in the long-term sustainability and solutions in the cocoa supply chain. Yes.
We've heard a lot in the past few weeks about all these companies that had contracts and partnerships in Russia, and those contracts have been broken. Do you have partnerships in Russia, and what is your plan?
Yeah, so fortunately, we have no direct exposure in Russia or Ukraine. We don't have any manufacturing, we don't have any employees, we don't have any large distributors. And so effectively, we don't have a business there to start with. We will be impacted by, I'll say, the secondary effects of what's happening there. Things like wheat prices and sunflower oil. Sunflower oil is an important ingredient in some of our salty snacks. And that region of the world manufactures 80% of the world's sunflower oil, which is an interesting and frightening fact. And so you think about that, and then I'll say the next cascade of impacts as well. So the impact on oil price and the way oil price is probably ultimately going to ripple through other parts of the economy. So the short answer to your question is we don't have any direct exposure, so there's nothing to shut down. Yes.
Yeah. How that
Yep. So the Hershey Trust owns or controls roughly 70% of the voting shares of the chocolate company that I work. And the balance is owned by public shareholders. And the trust also owns separately an entertainment division. So all the things that we often think about with Hershey, like the Hershey Hotel, like the all the park and all of those entertainment areas, restaurants in Hershey, all of that's owned by a development called Hershey Entertainment, and that also goes up to the trust. So the trust for us is our largest shareholder, and obviously exerts influence like any large shareholder would, but is a great partner. And one of the biggest benefits we have is when you have a shareholder that is so long-term focused as the Hershey Trust. We aren't, I'll say, swayed back and forth as some companies might be with very short-term oriented shareholder goals. They want us to, the trust wants to see the sustainability of our business and ultimately the sustainability of their dividend to support the school and the continued growth of the school. So it's actually a very strong and positive relationship. Yes.
When you're in the supermarket, shrinkflation is very obvious, especially in cereal boxes, baked goods. How does Hershey approach that situation?
Yeah, inflation is very visible. I think it's getting more and more so. So when we look at our long-term strategy, we want to have a revenue strategy regardless of whether there's inflation. And so we are looking all the time at aside from just taking price up, which is probably the most obvious thing to do, we also look at ways, hey, where can we add value to either consumers or to retailers? And so one example is if you're in the store now, you see what we call stand-up bags, but if you buy a bag of Kisses, there's kind of a nicely packaged bag of Kisses that sits up strong on the shelf, has a opening top. Didn't used to be that. They used to be kind of lay flat. It was hard to see. And then once you brought it home, you turn it open and candy would fly all over. So that's an example of, we saw an opportunity to improve the packaging, which makes it easier for consumers to consume the product. It's better for retailers because it actually stands up on shelf and it shows the brands better. And we were able to increase our revenue on that kind of a packing. So I kind of call that's the ideal, when you can find something that is good for consumers, retailers, and for our bottom line. In the environment we're in right now, there are two sort of impediments to more of those kind of projects. One is the pace of inflation is very high. And so the life cycle to come up with new packaging ideas, for example, is longer than the month-to-month inflation that we're seeing. The second is that in order to do new packaging changes, we need more time on the manufacturing lines, and our manufacturing lines are running full speed. And so these are the two things that are probably in the near term leading to more what we call list price increases as compared to packaging innovation and other ways to reduce cost on shelf. Yes. Yeah, so we long-term, consumers' tastes evolve. And so as much as we love the brands over here, and we do, and Reese is our biggest seller, we will always support and grow those brands. That is job one. But if we only do job one, then the worry is that 10 years from now or 15 years from now, we're just not going to have a portfolio of products that meets the taste of that future consumer. So we have an entire team inside that does nothing but look at other products, small manufacturers like Dots Pretzels, to bigger brands that we might want to bring into the portfolio. And we look at different taste profiles. So Lily's chocolate or Better For You chocolate has a little more bitter taste than the sweetness you get out of Hershey's. But we have people who have more of a palate for that. And we think there's going to be more palate for that in the future. And the same with some of the salty snacks. So that's the reason why we want to, again, we're not managing just for the quarter or the year. We're not even managing for this management group that happens to be in charge right now. We want to manage for the long term, and that means we have to evolve. Any others? Yeah.
I have the pleasure of working at Hershey in 2016. My question for you would be, how is the category handled? You got the digital advertising, but how is the category handled, like e-commerce traffic? I guess how much time, energy, capital are you allocating?
Yeah, so that's another good area of innovation. Aside from product innovation, just the way people shop has changed enormously, right, the last 5 years. Today, we don't have a big direct to consumer business. You can go on the Hershey website and you can order some customized candy bars for you or your family, but that's not the main thrust of what we sell. We do most of our work through retailers, but the retailers, of course, have online, and Amazon is online, and there we want to be very active and present. And there was a notion probably 5 years ago that as things get more digital and things like check-in, checkout counters go away and it's self-checkout, or it's all click and collect instead of coming into the store, that was going to have a big impact on instant consumable candy, the candy you buy as you're checking out. And in fact, up till now, that really hasn't been as big of an impact. We work closely with retailers. In fact, we're the confection category captain in probably 80% of the retailers. And so we help them, if they're going to do a self-checkout, for example, make sure that they've got offerings, not just confection, but other grab and go items in the self-checkout lines to be able to replicate what might have been lost otherwise through a normal checkout line. The same with click and collect. We have worked with their digital teams to make sure that as you're going back and clicking, hey, give me the same things I ordered last time, that you get prompts for instant consumable products. Again, not just confection, but other things you might grab and want to put into your basket. And so by using those tools, we've been able to sort of innovate, even though the way the consumer and many retailers has changed the way they check out. Any others? Yeah.
A quick one. What percentage of your sales are in the United States versus the rest of the world?
Yeah, so our sales are roughly 85% in the United States. And if you go outside the US, the biggest markets for us are going to be Canada and Mexico, probably no surprise there. And then we have smaller but rapidly growing businesses in India, Brazil, Western Europe. Those are probably the biggest ones. We export to 80 other markets, probably beyond that. But in terms of where we have meaningful presence that we're investing really to grow, it's a pretty small group. Yes.
So you talked a little bit about supply chain disruption and how that affects the make versus buy decision, what businesses do them. Is that change mostly about what's happening now and thinking that's going to go on for a couple of years, or is it really changing the risk that you see in the buy decision?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's probably taking a reflective look and then projecting further forward to just the current environment. And the reflective look is, again, in the past, we're happy not to own all of our assets. We're happy to have really good partners. And that worked out pretty well overall. But there are places in our portfolio that we were probably too reliant on partners. And not like they weren't doing a great job. We have excellent partners. But just if you were to step back and look at the balance and say, how much of my business is in the hands of, where the equipment or the recipe is in the hands of someone else, you might have said, that's pretty optimistic the way you've laid that out. Then when you overlay COVID and some of the supply chain challenges, now you see it in starker relief and you say, okay, yeah, we actually need to find a better balance point in some of our products, what we manufacture ourselves and under our roof versus what we contract with. And that's the part looking forward that I think is going to have some impact. We will always have partners. There are specialty parts of our portfolio in salty snacking, even in better for you chocolate like Lily's, where the recipe is different enough. It's not efficient for us to switch these big chocolate machines back and forth for runs that are small. So we will always have critical partners, but in some places, the balance point needs to move a little bit more towards our ownership. And you see that in our CapEx. You know, we've spent more on CapEx probably in the last couple of years than we have previously for that reason. All right, very good. Well, thank you so much for the questions. That's the best part.
Well, there's some bad news and some good news. The bad news is with Ben went his really high-end laptop and had the great capacity to do cool things. So we have this one that was kindly donated by Fox 43. I don't know if Chris is trying to stand back Fox 45. Could be, I don't know. But we'll get that squared away. I'm so sorry we couldn't show that video because we'd really love to see that. Maybe we could huddle around your phone after and take a look at it. But the good news is, thankfully, for the first time in a while, we've really been able to give some good attention to the questions, which we really do enjoy hearing all of that great stuff that you can incorporate into your presentation. Thank you for the great work you're doing, Steve. Thank you for your company. It's just a source of pride in our community. Hershey is just so great. It's an icon. So thank you for all that you're doing. In recognition of your time with us today, Steve has signed the bookplate for the book Fly High, John Glenn by Kathleen Kroll, which will donate to York Academy Regional Lower School. Next week, I don't think we have any slides next week, Daniel. It's York City Mayor Michael Halfrick will share the progress that's being made in York City and the challenges that we may face as our city experiences a surge in the Back to the City movement. He'll address the city's finances, safety, social issues, and economic development strategies. This being the first public address of his second term, he'll also share what he hopes to accomplish during the next 4 years. In closing, our quote today is by NBA great Steph Curry. If you don't fall, how are you going to know what getting up is like? I hope you have a great rest of your week. Don't forget to pick up a chocolate treat on your way out the door. This meeting is adjourned.
Some of our virtual stuff a long time ago, so I don't know how any of it's set up now. Yeah. But I was texting with Ben and being like, if there's anything I can do, let me know. So one thing I wanted to show you, when you share your screen.
I think it could be this doesn't have the capacity to do things.
Is that what you're thinking? Or is it because of the crash?
Well, yeah, the crash, then he had to upload it again, I think.
Hey Ben, I got you on speaker. So what do you think the problem with the laptop was?
Me?
To Daniel. Oh wait, stop the recording. Yeah, we'll stop the recording now. Sure. Perfect. And then we'll still keep the meeting open.